Good morning and welcome to Prairie Acres Farm. Today we have got a lot going on as always. Today we are going to be making at least two types of cheeses. The cheeses on my docket today is Farmhouse Cheddar and traditional Italian Mozzarella. This is going to be a very long process, so just to give you a heads up. The first thing that we have to do, though, is that we have to take the milk and we have to skim the cream off. For the mozzarella, you would not need to do this, but because I also need to make butter, I am going to be skimming most of the cream off of my milk. And so just to give you an idea, this here is all of the milk that we have to skim off. And this is only a couple days worth of milk, and the reason why I have so much milk over just a couple of days is because we are now milking two jerseys at the same time. So we're getting a lot of additional milk. Eventually, we're going to be drying Josie up so that she can get bred. But for the interim, we're going to continue milking the two jerseys. So I thought I would bring you along today and show you how I skim the milk. Now, one of the first things that you can do is you can get a cream separator. But for me, and I have one, but it is so cumbersome and it's a huge mess. I mean, yes, it does a great job with separating the cream, but the cleanup just isn't worth it, at least not for me. So I'm going to turn you around and I'm going to show you how I skim the milk. So I just start with my first jar, and then I take a clean pitcher that's been cleaned and sanitized, and I just have a stainless steel ladle. And this ladle is really cool because it fits in most of the jars with ease. And all I do, and if you can look, let me show you. This here is the cream line. You can see the cream line. Now, I'm going to be leaving cream in this. I'm not going to skim off every single ounce of cream, but I'm going to get close to that line. And all I do is just bring my pitcher up right up against it, try and not create a mess. And this here is all I do. Now, when you're skimming the cream off of raw milk, you can always tell when you're getting close to the milk because it will change color. It will have kind of like a bluish color to it. And this is all we do. And I just kind of go around the edges. The longer the milk sets, so if your milk, a couple days old, it'll get thicker as it sets. So this here is fairly fresh milk. I'm gauging about from last night. And that's it for number one. So what I do at this point is I'll set this over by my milk pots or my cheese pots, and I'll skim off everything. And then I use a 1 gallon jug, and that is what I just keep on adding to it until I get a full gallon, and it doesn't take long. And then I put it into my cheese pot. And the reason why I do that is because that helps me keep track of how much milk is going into that cheese pot. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to bring you over to my work area and show you the ingredients that we're going to be using for today's today's cheese. So for the Farmhouse Cheddar, we are going to be needing 2 gallons of milk. And for every 2 gallons of milk that you use, you're going to be using a half a teaspoon of mesophilic or meso type 2. And this is what it looks like. And of course, I get it from cheesemaker.com. You are also going to need a half teaspoon of liquid rennet. And you are going to mix your half a teaspoon of liquid rennet into a quarter cup of cool, non-chlorinated water. Now, I use filtered water, and I've never had an issue with that. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need your little teaspoons. And so that is for the Farmhouse Cheddar. Now, some optional things that you can use for the Farmhouse Cheddar. You can use annatto, this is what it looks like, and it'll just turn your cheese orange. It won't do anything for the flavor or consistency of your cheese or anything else like that. It's only to add color. I normally do not add the annatto to my Farmhouse Cheddar, but that is an option. If you were using store-bought milk, for every 2 gallons, you are going to need a half teaspoon of calcium chloride mixed into a quarter cup of cool, non-chlorinated water. So this is what it looks like. And because I'm using raw milk, I do not need this. The other thing that you can use to add flavor to your Farmhouse Cheddar is you can use dried chives. For every 2 gallons of milk that you are using, you're going to use 2 teaspoons of dried chives. Now, you don't have to just use chives. You could do other herbs. Rosemary would be phenomenal in a Farmhouse Cheddar, cilantro, and of course the chives, thyme. All of those very aromatic herbs will do wonderful in this cheese. Now, I normally just leave it plain because that is what people like. But I might do, not today, but sometime before Christmas, I might do a chive Farmhouse Cheddar. So that is that cheese. The other cheese that I'm going to be doing, which is my top priority, is the traditional Italian mozzarella. Now for this, you are going to need 2 gallons of milk, whether it be raw milk or whole milk. Store-bought milk. The other thing that you're going to need is 1/4 teaspoon of Lipase STB, and this here's what it looks like. And I got this on cheesemaker.com. And like I said, these here are just ingredients that I purchase all the time. So these guys are not a paid promotion or a paid sponsor. But this here is what you can use. The other option is, of course, if you're using store-bought milk, is your calcium chloride. And you will need 1/4 teaspoon of calcium chloride diluted in 1/4 cup of cool, non-chlorinated water. And the other optional thing that you can use it's called lipase. And this here's what it looks like. This here is a mild version, and I got this off of cheesemaker.com. And I've got a little bit left, so I'm going to use just this little bit in mine today. I did it last time, and it was such a great mozzarella. It was probably the best batch that I've ever done. Now, when I first started making mozzarella in the traditional fashion, I used MM100, and it did okay. And then the next couple batches, it just seemed like it didn't stretch very well. And once I switched to the Lipase STB, my mozzarella stretched so beautifully that I became a firm believer in that particular culture. Now, this is a thermophilic culture. Because the mozzarella has to come up to a very high temperature, and I'll bring you along for that as we progress, you are going to need a thermophilic culture, and thermophilic is a heat-loving culture, whereas a mesophilic culture is it doesn't like a high heat. So that is the differences between the two. So again, you're going to need your culture, you're going to need your rennet, and for the rennet, you're going to use a half a teaspoon mixed or diluted in 1/4 cup of cool, non-chlorinated water, and your lipase, and that is for the traditional mozzarella. The other thing that you're going to need, but not right away, is you're going to need some very heavy-duty gloves. And these here are barbecue gloves. So I used to have a pair of those plastic ones. Oh, what are they called? They're oven mitts, and oh my goodness, they were okay, but they only came up like to about here on me. And so when I was stretching my cheese, that hot water, because you're going to use very, very hot water when you're stretching your cheese, it was getting into the glove and it was burning my fingers. And every couple rounds, I would have to empty out that glove of the hot water. And then eventually it ended up getting holes in it, and it was just not working out very well. So I had to graduate to a a longer sleeve heat glove. And so I saw those barbecue gloves and I thought, okay, well, I'll just try it. And I do like it. So it's got these ridges on it. So it really helps me keep hold of those cheeses. And these are clean. They're just kind of stained, which does happen. So that is what we have right now. So I'm going to bring you back once I get the cheese pots all filled up with milk and have my cream separated from the milk, and then we'll get started on the cheese making. So we'll see you in just a minute. All right, friends. So we've got both of our cheese pots filled up. I just started warming the milk up. So for the Farmhouse Cheddar, we have to raise the temperature to 96. And then the same for the mozzarella. The mozzarella can actually go between the range of 96 and 100. So as long as you get into that range for warming up your milk, you will be fine. Once the milk is warmed up, then you're going to add your cultures and let them ripen both for 1 hour. So let me show you what we've got. So this here is a 10-gallon pot. And I've got roughly 9.5 gallons in this one. And on my big Amish canner cheese pot, I had just over 10 gallons in this one. So I wanted to use up all of my milk. So I just put as much as I could in each one. So anyways, that is what we have with the milk. Like I said, I'm going to warm them up and it's not going to take too long. And then we're going to add our cultures. This here is what we got for our cream. So let me plug my light back here. All right, so out of all of that cream, I've got 2 gallons here, 1 in each. And then my Dutch oven has about 1.5 gallons to roughly 1 3/4, almost 2 gallons of cream in that one. So all of this will come up to room temperature and then I will churn it. So this will actually stay on my counter for at least a couple hours, maybe about 3 or 4 hours. And then I can put it into my Ninja and turn it into butter. So in case you guys don't remember, because it was in my very first video, this here is the book that I'm using for the Farmhouse Cheddar. It is Artisan Cheesemaking at Home, and it is by Mary Carlin. You can get this on Amazon, and I would assume you could just look it up online and see where you can get it for the best price. And then this here is the recipe, Farmhouse Chive Cheddar. Now, I don't put the chives in, so I just omit that part. But if you wanted to definitely make a chive Farmhouse Cheddar, you can do that. And I already gave you the instructions for that. So that is where we're at the moment. And as soon as my milks come up to temperature, I'll bring you along and we'll add the culture. It's pretty much the same routine that I've been doing for all of my cheese making videos, but I will still bring you along. And then that way you can see exactly what I'm doing. The other thing that we're going to do today here in just a little bit is we're going to get all of that Brie cheese out of the fridge and we're going to wrap it up into cheese paper. So I'm going to get that ready and bring you along. So just give me a minute. So I am back. I still have all of my milk warming up. It's not up to temperature yet, but I want to make good use of my time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the Brie that we made into the cheese paper. Now this cheese paper I got from Amazon. I get a lot of stuff from Amazon just because it's convenient, but it's plain on one side and then it's got a pattern on the other side. On another package that I got from the same company, it's plain on both sides. But on this side, on one side, it's shinier than the other. And that is what you want on the outside. Now, this is cheese paper. And what is very unique about it is that it's got micro perforations so that the cheese can still breathe while it is in the refrigerator. Now, speaking of storage, now I've had this in my cheese fridge, which is 45 degrees Fahrenheit. You can put it in your regular refrigerator. It's just going to take a little bit more time for that fuzzy mold texture to develop, or the bloomy rind, as they call it. but this is coming out beautiful. Look at this here is what you are wanting. You want that nice bloomy rind. And it's starting to develop along the sides and on the bottom. And this is what you are wanting to see. Now, this has been in my cheese fridge since October 8th. So normally you only have to keep it in there for 2 weeks, but the optimal temperature would be at 55. And because mine is colder than 55, it's taking a little bit longer to develop that bloomy rind. And I'm okay with that because this isn't going to be sellable until it matures. And so the optimal cure date for this would be, let me backtrack, is not the optimum. The earliest would be 4 weeks, which is November 19th. The optimal cure date would be December 3rd. So I'm going to bring you in and let you see what I am doing. So I've placed my cheese on the cheese paper and I have my labels ready. So these are my labels and I create labels for each of my cheeses. So I get my labels from onlinelabels.com and I print them out blank or I get them blank and then I can adjust the dates and everything on it through their program, which is Maestro. It just works out very well for me. It's a lot cheaper for me to do it that way because if you've ever ordered labels, you know that they can be a little spendy. And then all I'm going to do is just wrap it up, like so. I'm just creating pleats so that it wraps. And all I'm trying to do is make sure that the entire cheese is covered. Let's just work your cheese paper around until you can get that all the way covered. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just get some masking tape or scotch tape and I'll tape it in place. But at this point, you just take one of your labels and plop it on there. And that kind of holds it down. And so what I'll do with this, let me get my scotch. So what I'll do is I'll get my scotch tape, take it off a little bit, and just finish sealing that up. I mean, I don't want to put too much tape down because I still want people to be able to get into it. And there you have it. And so my label is on the cheese. It's wrapped in this cheese paper. It's got all of the dates on there when it was made, the cure date, and then the best cure date. And then I am complying with all the state laws. So that is how we do it. I'm not going to do all of these in front of the camera, but that is what I'm going to finish up doing. And by the time I'm done with this, then my milk should be up to temperature. So we will see you back in a few minutes. All right, friends, so we are back and I'm going to swing you around. This here is what we got with all of our Brie cheese that we made on October 8th. So we've got 4 large rounds, and then we've got 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 smaller rounds, and then a little baby round. So all of the milk is up to temperature. So now I'm going to swing you around and we are going to add our cultures. So just give me a minute. All right, so this pot here is going to be our Farmhouse Cheddar, and this pot is going to be our mozzarella. And so we know that with the Farmhouse Cheddar, we are going to need a half teaspoon of Mazo 2 for every 2 gallons. And I know I've got roughly 9.5 gallons in this pot. I mean, oh my goodness, it is so full. I really don't like getting it that full, but I really wanted to use up the milk that I had. So, and remember, this is a half teaspoon for every 2 gallons. And you just sprinkle it on top, just like what I'm doing. And then you're going to let it sit for about 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, let it rehydrate. All righty. There's that one. I rinsed my spoon off because it is a 1/4 teaspoon of the Lipase. Let me bring you over here so you can see. So this here is our mozzarella. We need 1/4 teaspoon for every 2 gallons. So I know I've got just over 10 gallons in there. So we're going to do, let me see, 1, 2, so half. So 4 half teaspoons. Wait, no. Yeah, there we go. This here is a half teaspoon. So this here will inoculate 4 gallons. So there's 4, there's 8, and then I know I've got just over 10, so just under or just over a quarter teaspoon. And so while that is reconstituting, I'm going to take my mild lipase. I am making nothing but a mess over by my fridge. All right, so this here is filtered water. I'm just filling up a little bit because you want to put your lipase powder, your mild lipase, into some water, and you're going to let that reconstitute. And I am out, which is fine. I got plenty in there for what I'm doing. So the lipase is really just for, let me see, it releases the fats into your milk, and it also adds flavor. So I do like using the mild lipase a little bit. It isn't bad, but you don't want to use too much or else it will really, really make your cheese very sharp, very strong, and you may not want that. So all I'm going to do is use my spoon, stir it up. So I'm just going to let that sit for a couple minutes because the longer you let that sit, the more it will soften and you can be able to mix it well. In the meantime, let's bring you around here. So I just have my ladle sitting on the side right here. No sense in. And then I'm just going to try very carefully mix that cultures in from top to bottom, going in a rounded motion because you want to bring that milk from the bottom up to the top. So I hope you guys check out my YouTube channel. I've got a new video up. Whoops, sorry. I'm getting my hand all in the camera. So with being very new to YouTube, it's been a learning curve for me trying to figure out, best angles and stuff because Mari, she does all of my editing, but she can't come here every time I make cheese or else she would almost be living here. And it's just not practical for her. So I do my best with the camera work. And then when Maddie can join us, she does. But for the most part, she does all of my editing and makes the final YouTube product, acceptable. With that being said, I'm still learning. So I pray that you guys give me some grace on that. And I'm trying not to say the ums. However, Maddie has got this wonderful program that takes my ums out. But this here is all you want to do. Just move that milk. And because I've got it incredibly full, be very, very careful. And so I'm just going to still the milk and then I'm going to bring it over here and I'm going to put my lid on. And you are going to want to let that culture ripen for 1 hour. And so the same thing with this pot here. I'm just going to move those filters around. As you can see, I am doing my best to get all of that milk moving so that all of it is inoculated with our culture. And the mozzarella is going to ripen for 1 hour as well. All right. So with that done, my lipase is looking good. Give it another final stir. Okay, and I'm going to add just a teeny bit more water to this. And we're going to just add it to our milk. Now, you can also add the lipase right before you add the rennet because you are going to let your rennet ripen 45 minutes. However, I think with the little amount that I used in all of this milk, I'm going to need that extra time for that flavor to get in there. And there we go. So I'm going to still the milk. And what I mean by stilling milk is just get it calm. And all you do is you just put your spoon or whatever you're going to use right on the top of the milk and just calm it down. And there we go. That was done. And we set our timer for 1 hour. All right. So if you see my mess over here, I'm in the process of washing all of the jars and they're going to be sanitized in the dishwasher. But with all the jars that I had, it's going to take 2 loads, at least 2 loads. And then I have to wash all of the containers that the Brie cheese was in because I love using those containers for brining the cheese, which we will do with the Farmhouse Cheddar, and also using the smaller containers for ice baths for the mozzarella. And we'll get to that when we get to that point. So for the time being, I will see you back in 60 minutes and we will add our rennet. So we'll see you in a minute. All right, friends. So we are back. The cultures have been ripening for an hour, and now we are going to add our rennet that has been diluted into our cooled, non-chlorinated water. So I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see. All right. So all we do is we just add our rennet into our milk. And again, as a reminder for the rennet, you want 1/2 teaspoon diluted into 1/4 cup of cooled non-chlorinated water. And of course, mine is going to be stronger because I've got a lot more milk. And again, I'm just trying to be careful so I don't spill my milk all over the place because I am fairly accomplished at making a mess. And you can see that beautiful cream up at the top. Now I'm going to start moving that milk, bringing that bottom milk up to the top and stirring in the cream all at the same time. This here should only take about 30 seconds. Now, once your rennet is added and you have it mixed in really well, just by doing what I'm doing, you're going to let it coagulate for 45 minutes. If it hasn't set, give it another 10 minutes. But I've never had my milk not set within a 45 minute time frame. So now I'm going to just still the milk. And I'm going to let it back on because we want to keep that heat in there. So we want to keep it covered. Now for our mozzarella, we are basically going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring you in. And then for the mozzarella, you want half a teaspoon of rennet mixed in to your cool water. So, alrighty, that should be good. All right, so in the rennet goes. Oh, dang, that cream is just amazing. So like I said, when I skimmed the milk, I didn't take all of the cream off. I wanted to have a little bit more than normal cream for my cheese making, just because the mozzarella ends up being so, oh goodness, not so much decadent, but it's just very luxurious. And I find with that little bit more heavier of a cream content, you end up with a much better mozzarella. I'm just moving that that milk from top to bottom or bottom to top, however you want to say that. I'm sorry, I keep on getting my hand in the way. This is what I was talking about. I'm trying to get better with making sure that you can see everything that I'm doing. There's just a lot that goes into making a video that you don't consider until you're actually doing it. And I had never made videos before. Actually, I was incredibly camera shy. It took me a long time to decide to do this. There we go. And that is all we do. Now I'm going to set my timer for 45 minutes, and that should give the milk plenty of time to ripen. And I will bring you back for the curd cutting, and we'll move on to our next steps for both of the cheeses. So we'll see you in a few minutes. All right, so our milk has coagulated. We're going to do a cut test here in just a second. So I'm going to take the lid off and then move the camera around and show you how we do the curd test. Okay, so for this, I've got to get my stool. So with your curd knife, this is my curd knife, I'm just going to go in like that. Oh, it's perfect. And you just raise it up. And when you see that break, that is what you're looking for. So that is perfect on that one. Now I'm going to be using the curd knife on this pot, and then my curd cutter, and I'll show you what I'm going to use for this one. So I'm going to just do the same curd test on this one. Oh, it's good. I can tell already. Yep, it is perfect. So on this here on the Farmhouse Cheddar, I am going to do my best to get down to the bottom of this pot with the curd knife. I'm going to go in vertical and then horizontal and then add a 45. I am not going to get very good squares or cubes, but that is fine. I will have to go in and probably recut a lot of it as I go to stir it because it's just a lot of curd in there. And then once I get some whey, I'll probably take some of the whey off as well. So once you cut the curds, you're going to let them set for 5 minutes on the Farmhouse Cheddar. And that is what we call letting our curds heal. It just helps them to firm up a little bit and not shatter because you really don't want your curds to shatter. But I know that towards the bottom, I am not going to get everything. So I am going to have to manually cut some of this. And that's fine. I mean, I expected it when I filled it up this high. Now I'm going to go horizontal. These are really nice curves though. This turned out really nice. I am happy with that. All right, so we are going to let those rest for 5 minutes. And I'm going to put the lid back on. I'm going to move you over so you can see what I'm going to do with this one. So with the mozzarella, I'm going to be using my square cord cutter here. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust my stool. It just helps me to reach the pot better when I'm up a little higher. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and then just kind of poke it through when it doesn't want to cooperate with me. These are some really thick curds. On the mozzarella, it isn't as critical, if you will, to get it perfect because the instructions actually say to just cut it into strips. And then you're going to let it rest for 30 minutes. So while I finish this, I'm going to go back into my Farmhouse Cheddar pot and I'm going to do a little bit more cutting on that because I just remembered that I didn't go at the 45. So all I'm trying to do is get these larger curds through. And that's pretty much, I mean, this here looks really good. So I've sanitized my hands, but what you can do if you want to be on the extra cautious side is you can take a 50-50 solution of white vinegar and water. Oh, there's a big piece. See, I knew there was some. So there's just a lot of curd in this pot and that's fine. I'm just kind of poking it through. And right before I got on camera, I sanitized my hands. So I just don't show every single thing because honestly, it's kind of a no-brainer. So if you don't know how to wash your hands really well, probably shouldn't make cheese. All right. That's all I'm going to do for this. Break the hand off. And so we're going to cover this back up. Going to set our timer for 30 minutes. And we're going to come back over here. And I'm going to pick up where I left off. So as I said, I forgot to come in at the 45. I kind of go in a couple different directions just because it's easier for me to manipulate the curd knife, especially with this hood being here. And I'm going to reach around and try and stay out of the frame. And so when you're working with a round pot, just do the best you can with cutting your curds. Like I said, I'm just going to go in there. So I know I'm going to have some really large pieces. So when I get to the point of stirring them, I'm going to take off some of this whey. That way it'll make it easier for me to work with these curds. But you just do the best you can. That's why I like this pot here because I can really cut those curds with my other cutter and end up with some pretty decent size squares. And when you come across, large pieces, you just cut it with your curd knife. Try not to tip it out like I just did. That's a one major disadvantage of having your pot so full, which is why I don't typically do it this full because it's just so easy to knock your curds out of the pan or out of the pot. All right. So I'm going to call that good for right now. Like I said, when I come back in to do the next step, that is where I'm just going to go in and I'm going to take, let's say, a large curd like this, and I'm just going to break it up. just like that. But I want to let it rest for a few more minutes and firm up a little bit. So I will bring you back in about, I'm going to say 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Usually you only need about 5 minutes for the curds to heal. But because I've got so much curd in here, I'm going to give it 10 minutes. All right, so we will see you back in 10 minutes. All right, so I have cut the curds as much as I possibly can into smaller pieces because I was correct. There was a lot of very large chunks in the bottom. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to turn our burner on very low, and we're going to bring this up to 102. So I'm going to put my lid back on. Once this gets up to 102, then we are going to stir it. We're going to turn the temperature off or the heat off, and then we're going to stir it very gently for 20 minutes. Once that is done, I'll bring you along and we'll go on to the next step. For the mozzarella, we still have 8 minutes to go for that. So when we are done with the mozzarella for resting, I will bring you back. All right, so this here pot is almost ready. It's just got a couple more minutes. So we are not going to do anything to this at the moment. What we are going to do is we're going to turn on our burners on very low, and we are going to bring the temperature up to 105. So remember, this one here, the Farmhouse Cheddar, has to come up to 102 over 40 minutes. And about the same for the mozzarella, but only to 105. Now, the reason for that is you don't want to bring your temperatures up too fast, or especially with the mozzarella, because the mozzarella will not stretch if you bring it up too fast. So keep your temperatures on low, and over 40, 50 minutes, bring your temperatures up to the respective temperatures. So when we get to 102 and 105, I will bring you back. I'll see you in a minute. All right, so we are at the 30-minute mark. We've got 30 more minutes to let these come up to temperature. I just finished stirring the mozzarella. I'm making sure it doesn't stick to the bottom and burn or scorch. And I'm going to do the same for the Farmhouse Cheddar. And then I will also take a temperature reading. Let me get my burtle. And according to the pot, we're at 90 degrees for this one. All we're going to do is just go in and break this up a little bit, make sure it doesn't scorch on the bottom, and try not to get whey all over the place. So, and I just very gently break up the curds a little bit, just so that, because it will mat, so please don't be alarmed with that. See, this here is a big curd chunk, and that is expected, and then all I do is I just break it up a little bit, just so it doesn't become unmanageable. And then when we go to do the 20-minute stir for this, that is when we will really break up these big chunks. Right now, I'm just moving it around, just trying to prevent that from scorching. See, it's already starting to melt a little bit, and that's expected as well. So don't be alarmed with that. That's just because of the heat source. So I'm just kind of bringing you in. I just work so much better with my hands. I'm just breaking this up. This is why you need to have really clean hands, because you do kind of play with your food in a way. But by breaking it up, what you're also doing is you're allowing that heat to dissipate throughout your whey and bring everything up to your 102. When we go to stir this for the 20 minutes, I'm going to take a little bit more of the whey out so that I'm not going to make too much of a mess. But right now I'm just breaking up some of these curds. Just very gently move it around on the bottom as best as you can, because I've had it where I have scorched my cheese a little bit because I didn't do this. Because the book, the instructions in the book don't tell you to move the curds. It's just something that I found out that I needed to do because I had scorched my curds. And this is on very low heat, but I have gas stove, so it tends to get those hot pockets. And what I'm trying to do is get right down to the very bottom, and undo where I know it's stuck because of the heat. All right, we'll bring you back when we get up to temperature. All right, see you in a minute. So our curds for the mozzarella has reached 104, and the curds for the Farmhouse Cheddar has reached 102. So I turned off all of the heat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on the mozzarella first. It's not going to hurt these to sit in the water or in the whey for a few minutes. So the next step with the mozzarella is you stir it for 10 minutes and then you let it rest for 10 minutes. And then when I start on the resting phase for this, I will start to turn these, and this here will be stirred for 20 minutes. So I'm going to get started on that, and then I will bring you back when we get to the next step. All right, so we are back, and I stirred the curds, and yeah, my timer is off. And what I did was I took out majority of the whey because there's no way I could lift that. So yeah, so now I'm going to take it over to the colander and drain it, and I will bring you along. All right, so this is my colander that's right here. It's lined with the butter muslin, and this here is going to catch all of the curds, and then I'm going to let them drain for just a couple minutes, and then I will get them into the forms. So I will bring you along with me. And then once we're done that, then we can drain the mozzarella. So a lot goes on in a short period of time. All right, so this is all our curds. I had a tiny bit of scorching, but not too bad. So we just let this drain, and I kind of just hulk it along. Now at this juncture, you could add a little bit of salt, cheese salt if you wanted. I don't normally because I brine my cheese anyway in a near saturated brine. And a near saturated brine is 24 ounces by weight of a cheese salt. So your cheese salt can be a pink Himalayan. It can be a, whatchamacallit. I will think of it in a second. The Dead Sea salt stuff, and oh goodness, kosher salt. So those are just a couple of different cheese salts that you can use. And so here I'm just moving my curds around a little bit, making sure I get some of that moisture out. But anyways, as I was saying, it is 24 ounces of cheese salt to every gallon of water. So there is that. So what I do is I just take the platform that it's going to sit on anyway, and I put my mold there, and I've got a clean cheesecloth right here. And there's still a lot of moisture in there. So normally I wet this, but because there is still quite a bit of moisture in there, it's going to get wet on its own. And all I do is I just start putting it in there and laying it down so that it doesn't end up in like bunches. I mean, you want to spread it throughout your mold or your form. See, there's a little bit of scorching right there. So I just kind of get that out. So if you see any scorching, just take it out. It's not going to do anything. And I just kind of press my curds down a little bit just to make sure that it's evenly distributed in my form. Now I'm going to get 2 large rounds of cheese out of all of this. And if it was me, it would be at this juncture where I would add the chives or rosemary or whatever herb you wanted to use. You just mix it in really well. Make sure that your curds are small enough. And so in order to do that, you just break them up more. But because I'm not adding anything, I'm not too worried about it. It's usually at about this time frame where you just want to be done because it's been a long day making cheese, especially when you're doing it like I'm doing it and you're doing mega batches. I'm just breaking it up because this will all knit together once you get your weights on. So that's about as full as I want to take that. And then all I do is I just take my tail and smooth it out a little bit. Make sure you get that slack up. And then you just take your tail and you put it over. And as you can see, I hope you can see, there's already moisture coming out. And then I just dump it in the sink. And then I take it over to my press. And then we just kind of repeat. Now with this here, what I do is I break up the big pieces just like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to use this cheesecloth or butter muslin. I just get my curds into manageable sizes because it's still warm. So it's very easy to manipulate. Once they start cooling off, it becomes a little bit more difficult. All right. So all I do is I just grab my ends. That way nothing falls out. Kind of get it into a ball and put it in my mold or my form. So it's not as big as the other one, but I'm not too concerned with that, honestly. And then I put my tail over, put my follower on, and then I'm going to turn you around so you can see the next part. And then I just leave that platform on there because I want that weight, or not the weight, but I want that stability. All right. And as you can see, it's already draining on its own without any pressure. But you want 8 pounds of pressure for the first hour. And then you're going to flip your cheese. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Just try and line it up really well. And even without any pressure, I mean, it is dripping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little dowel out that comes with it, raise your arm up, and then I just kind of push it down, put the dowel in, and there you have it. So I am going to put some weight on here. I just have to get a weight, probably a water bag, and put it on there. But for right now, this is going to be plenty of pressure until I get everything else done. So I am going to move you back over to the sink so you can see what I'm going to do with the mozzarella. All right, so with the mozzarella, it's already ready to be drained and everything. And of course, that pan is really, really heavy, like everything. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it by the measuring cup and just put it in here. So I don't have really small pieces of curd, or else I would line this with the butter muslin. But when I was stirring it, it's very fairly large chunks. And that's going to be fine because we're going to let it drain for 15 minutes. And while it's draining, I'm going to be heating up some hot water for a hot water bath. So I'm going to just scoot you back just a little bit. And I'm going to take my first. All of this is going to be Whey at the moment. But if anything gets in my measuring cup, then the colander will catch it. If I had another pitcher, I would use a pitcher to do this. But I don't. I only have the tea. And they are being occupied with Brie. All right, so I am going to finish this and I will bring you back when we get the curds in here. All right, so our curds are here in our colander. Now, if you had a colander that could fit into a double boiler without touching the water, you can definitely do that. But because I deal with such large quantities, this works best for me. So what I do is I just take the curds at this point, and put them in a pot. Try and get it as flat as you can. And what's going to happen is you're going to put this pot in your double boiler. And my hot water is heating right now. And you're going to leave it in there for 2 hours. So halfway through, what I do is I get the double boiler out with my curds in it. And I dump off the whey that will accumulate. You will get whey in your pot here. And so I just dump it out and I flip the cheese and then I put it back into the hot water bath or the double boiler for the remainder of the time. And then I will drain it all back into a colander. So let me move my camera so you can see what I'm doing. So the instructions say to bring your water bath up to 102. But I've done this several times and I know that that is not warm enough. Probably because of the amount that I'm doing. If you're only doing the 2 gallons, that's probably good enough. But for me, I know that it isn't. And this here is almost boiling, which is what I want. So we're looking at it about a good 9-10 pounds of curds here. So I'm just going to put that. There we go. And then I'm going to get a lid. And I'm going to cover it with a lid just like that. Hopefully you can see what I just did. So you've got your hot water in here. Then you've got your pot with the curds in it. And then it's all covered with the lid. And I'm going to set my timer. It's 5:06 my time, but I'm still going to set it. So actually, what I'm going to do is set it for 60 minutes, and then I will come back in 60 minutes and I will drain it and flip the cheese. So just to make sure that you can see, so this here is your cheese curds. And so what's going to happen is that all of this is going to basically form into one big mass. And then halfway through, you're going to drain the whey and flip it and then continue on until your 2 hours is up. Now, ideally, you should be able to get a reading of about 4.5, 5 on the pH scale. I don't have a digital pH tester, but I do have the strips, and I don't like the strips because I don't feel like it gives me an accurate reading of what the pH is. So as long as your pH is down, and you can tell by the way it stretches. But anyways, we'll get to that. So anyways, I'm going to turn my heat off, and I'm just going to let this do its thing for 2 hours. And as I said, but I know I probably repeated myself, but halfway through at the 1 hour mark, come back in, take your curds off, drain it, flip it, and then put it back in your hot water. If your water gets too cool, turn your heat back on and get it back warm so that it will do its thing. All right, I will see you in an hour. And in that time, I will clean up my messes. And so we'll see you in 60 minutes. All right. So it has been an hour since I put the cheese in the cheese press. And so I'm going to flip them and raise this up like this, just so it stays out of my way. So the next stage for this is once I flip them, I'm going to put them back in the press, and I will increase the pressure by a couple pounds. And then it will stay in the press overnight or 12 hours. But this is what it looks like so far. It's knitting together really well. And so when I put it back into the press and increase the amount of weight, this here will be nice and pretty. And put our follower back on. And then for this one, I'm going to put that right there. And I just kind of smooth out my butter muslin. And you can see here where it had scorched a little bit. And so I'm just going to take those little scorched pieces off. That way people don't look at it weird. So I think that is probably the only negative that I have with keeping it under temperature, like what we had to do. So, okay, so it's almost in the form. I'm just going to make sure it's on that tray. Push it down. And, well, so much for my clean floor. I just mopped my floor. Right. So the only thing I have to do is add a couple more pounds and put my dowel back in. Yeah, if you don't get these dowels exactly right, then it goes wonky. And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to move you around then, because now is the time for us to flip the mozzarella and drain off that way. And then we've got 1 more hour to go for the mozzarella. All right, so this is what it looks like. And that's what you want. You want it to melt. I think my water was a little bit too warm this time, but I think it will be fine. And all I do is I just loosen it from the sides. Let me bring you in so you can see what I'm doing. So all I'm doing is just loosening it from the side. And then I'm just going to dump the whey out. Youch, that is hot. And that's really it. But look at how nice that's looking. I think this is going to be a really nice mozzarella, but I'm biased. So I'm going to wipe my hands off, clean up that. And that's all there is to it. So now we wait 1 more hour. Then I can take it out, drain it for about 15 minutes. And then we're going to cut it into cubes, and I'll bring you all along for that last little bit. Yes, this is a very long process, the way I do it. So that brings up a good point that I wanted to discuss with you. So there are a lot of videos out where you can make mozzarella in 15 minutes or 30 minutes or something like that. and I have no problems with that. But I am making artisan cheeses, and I try and stay as traditional as I possibly can with the equipment and with the ingredients that I'm able to get. So I try and keep it as traditional, like I said, as much as possible. This here, the way I'm doing the mozzarella, is the traditional Italian way. So I think it's a far superior cheese compared to other types that you can get. It stretches really well. It just tastes phenomenal. And so, yeah, there is no compromises, I guess you could say, especially if you love cheese. And if you're in a rush or something, I get it. You just want to be done. But this here is what people really enjoy with my cheeses. So with that being said, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to try and get some chores done and come back in an hour and finish up. All right, we'll see you in 60. All right, so welcome back. This is close to being done. So I've had the mozzarella curds draining. And so what we're going to do next is I'm going to place them up on the cutting board and we're going to cube it. And I'm just going to use the same pot that I had them in. No sense in dirtying up another pot. And so while I'm working on this, my gloves are being sterilized. And all you do is just chuck it in, cut it, and that's all you do for this stuff. Now, once I get all of this cut, we are going to basically temper it. And how you do that, let me move this a little bit. And how you temper your curds is we're just going to put regular tap water, hot tap water into the pot, and we're going to let it sit there for about 10 minutes. We're going to drain it, do it again, and then we're going to drain it, and then we are going to put boiling water in it. And I will bring you along for all of that. But this here is all we're doing at the moment. Like I said earlier, this is a long process to make traditional mozzarella cheese, but it is so worth it. If you decide to do this on your own using store-bought milk or raw milk if you have it available, I would encourage you to try it and make sure you devote a full day to it. Could you do the 30-minute version? Absolutely. I'm not saying there isn't anything wrong with that version, but this here is just, I don't know, I think it's better. That's just my personal opinion. Alrighty, so I am going to finish cutting up the mozzarella into cubes. And when I get that done, I will bring you back. All right. So we are in the last phase of making this mozzarella cheese. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to empty out the water that was tempering the curds. And then I'm going to put in some very hot boiling water into the pot. There we go. There is that. So while the cheese curds are absorbing that heat from the hot water, I'm making up another pot just in case I need it. If I don't need it, that's fine. But I want to be prepared because as the water cools, so does the cheese curd. So I want to make sure I have that constant temperature. All right, that should be good. All right, so this here is where your gloves are going to come in handy. You do not want to be putting your hand in this hot water. It's just too much. You will burn yourself. In addition, I'm on my other counter. Here, let me actually bring it over so that you can see. I have a tray of ice water and I have salt brine because what I'm going to do is as soon as I get this melting really well, I'm going to stretch it, make my balls, my mozzarella balls. I'm going to put it in the ice bath. And then when it's done with the ice bath, it will go into the salt brine. It will only be in the salt brine for maybe 10 minutes. I just want to get some saltiness to the cheese because I didn't add any additional. The ice water is to cool it down really quickly because you don't want to keep that heat in the cheese. So you want to be able to cool it down. All right, I am gloved up and I'm ready to go. So all I do is I just kind of move my cheese around. Oh, I can already tell it is going to stretch really nice. It's already doing that in the water. So all I'm doing is I'm just kneading it. And the thing with this here is that as soon as you start to stretch your cheese, you don't want to stretch it too much. You don't want to overwork it. Right now, I'm just kind of kneading it into a big ball, kind of like dough. And this is why you need the heavy duty gloves. Okay, I'm going to bring it up so you can see. So this here is my curd mass. And look, it's already stretching. And this is what you want. This is beautiful. Oh my goodness. It's kind of like stretching taffy. And I kind of just let gravity do the work for me. But this is what you're looking for. And I kind of have a rag at the ready so I can get my drips. Now what I do is kind of put it back into a ball and then I stretch it again. I only do about 3, maybe 4 stretches and then I will start making the mozzarella balls. And I try and go for a half pound or 8 ounces. That seems to be the size that people really like, but it's really hard to gauge. I'm not that proficient at gauging weights at the moment. All right, here we go for stretch number 2. If you cannot get your cheese to stretch like this, then that means that your pH is off. But as you can see, this is stretching. I mean, I'm not putting any additional weight on it. I'm just letting gravity take over. But look at this. This is beautiful. Look how that is stretching. Oh my goodness. Can't get better than that. I'm going to do one more stretch and then start shaping our mozzarella balls. So see how it's got that nice sheen on it? That's another indicator that it's ready. I'm kind of helping it along now because the water is starting to cool off a little bit. I know it doesn't seem like it, but you can tell by the way that the cheese is responding. So I want to kind of hurry this up. All right, that is good. So now I'm going to knead it one more time. And I'm going to start making my mozzarella balls. Okay, I'm going to see if that water is ready. So I'm going to have to warm this up a little bit. All right. Oh, that's better. So as you're kneading your curds in the hot water, you can tell that it's absorbing that heat by how well it kneads. If you have to put a lot of pressure on your curds, then your water just isn't hot enough. All right. And all I do is I'm just shaping it into a ball, give it a dunk. All right. And there we have it. But this here will go into the ice bath. All right. So I am not going to keep you here to do all of this, but I'll do one more and then I'll bring you back when we're done. So you just get as close to about 8 ounces as you can. I'm not sure what this is, honestly. I'm just gauging. And then I'm going to dunk it in the hot water, get it nice and smooth. And then into the ice bath it goes. All right, I will see you when I am done, and I'll show you what we ended up with. All right, so we've got 4 of our mozzarella balls out of the ice bath and out of the saltwater bath. And we've got 4 more in, and I've got 2 other ones over in the ice bath. Just mostly because I don't have any more room in here. But to give you an idea of what they weigh, let me get my scale. We'll see how close I came to 8 ounces. I know I've gone over on several of them, and that doesn't bother me a whole lot. I mean, I would love to get better at gauging. Okay, this is 9 3/8, so basically 9 1/2. This one's going to be a little over. This is 11 ounces. This is 1 pound. That's actually not bad. So, and this is almost a pound. So not bad. See how much these weigh. 1 pound. I'm actually pretty good at the 1 pound. 1 pound and 2 ounces. 1 pound and 1 pound, 1.5 ounces. So I actually came closer to 1 pound on most of the mozzarella balls. And that's fine. I mean, I'm happy with that. Would I like to get closer to half a pound? Absolutely. But it is what it is. And so we ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 pounds of mozzarella out of just over 10 gallons of milk. So that is our threshold, I guess you could say. So basically, you're going to get 1 pound of cheese for every gallon of milk. All right, so these here are ready to come out anyway. So we'll put these on here. And so as these dry, they will spread out a little bit, but not a whole lot from what they are right now. I mean, you can kind of see it here and here. And then once these are dried, probably within the next half hour or so, I'm going to vacuum seal it all up, label it, and I will be done for the day. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today as we made traditional Italian mozzarella cheese and farmhouse cheddar. Come out and see me at the Lumberton Market. These will be available for the Christmas sale, December 13th. All right. Thank you and God bless.